It's do or die week. We got to win the championship. We got to keep going through week 17 rankings, getting into our kickers, starting out with tier 1. We've got Cameron Dicker and Kaimi Fairbairn together in this matchup in Los Angeles this week at 1 and 2. The way I see this one, it will be a field goal fest. Both offenses have their weaknesses, and I pointed this out when I was discussing the defenses for this week. They both have their weaknesses as well that they can figure out with the offenses, because the defenses on both sides, they're very good defenses. However, the problem that you're going to experience, particularly if you're the Chargers, is that you're going to have a lot of sacks that are going to be brought on Justin Herbert because that Texans front seven is so strong. That will lead to a lot of field goal attempts from Cameron Dicker this week. I'm very excited to play Dicker, and I'm really excited to play Fairbairn as well. Again, this matchup is going to offer challenges for the Texans offense too. There's going to be a massive challenge as far as the efficiency of the offense goes because the defense of the Chargers is also very good. And the Houston Texans, what's their one weakness? It's the offensive line. And I think that it has been proven time and time again by any functional defense. If you just apply pressure to this offense, it will become a problem for them. So I think that's going to push them back into several situations where Kaimi Fairbairn can continue to kick 30 to 40, even 50-yard field goals for you this week. Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks sneaks into tier 1 as well. He's at 3, and he's going to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Now, a lot of people probably are going to feel reluctant to play him this week because he just had a bad week against the Rams. I think that game was really weird because you only had 2 touchdowns from the offense, and then you also had a situation where the Seahawks were kind of just really bad defensively, and they had a lot of 3-and-outs and a lot of interceptions thrown by Darnold. I don't think that continues this week. They're on a long week of rest. They're going to Carolina, who are coming off a major emotional win, and I think the Panthers are going to pull back their play this week. I think the Seahawks are in great position, and ultimately, at this time of the year, you kind of just got to ride with the guys who have helped you get here, and Jason Myers, while he may have made your matchup closer than it should have been last week, or you may have lost, and that's unfortunate, but if you've got him and an opportunity to play him again, I would personally play him. Dropping down to our next tier, we've got Brandon Aubrey at number 4. He's going to Washington to take on the Commanders on Christmas Day. So I think this matchup is pretty much all Dallas. Like, there's really no good thing I can look at with the Commanders and say, oh, it's going to turn out really well for them. Like this matchup, Washington, they're going to be playing with Josh Johnson in all likelihood. And Brandon Aubrey in the Dallas offense is going to crush the Washington defense because Washington's defense has been nothing. And I just remember back a couple weeks ago when I was ranking Aubrey in the lower tiers, I got screwed by it because he still does have that 20-point ceiling. And I think he does on any given week. The reason he's down here in tier 2 is because of the fact I think the Cowboys will probably be more efficient getting into the end zone than they will be inefficient forcing field goals this week. And then we've got Chris Boswell at number 5. He's going to Cleveland to take on the Browns. This matchup actually feels like a pretty heavy field goal day. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, they've done well over the past several weeks, I would say. They got a fire lit under them when we were chanting Fire Tomlin chants. Ultimately, I think the Browns are going to come to play. And I think the Steelers are in this position to where they're winning in, and they've just had a long history of beating the Browns at the end of the season, forcing them to fire their coach after the game. So I like history on this one, but I also do think it's going to be close. Like, I really do think the Browns are going to have a lot of fight. We know their defense has really shut down a lot of good offenses this year. So I would say that the Steelers are more locked in a field goal battle this week, which raises Boswell's floor. And then we've got Chase McLaughlin at number 6 to round out this tier. Going to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The matchup is great. Obviously, the Bucs offense can put up points against the Dolphins defense. The ultimate problem here is that the Bucs offense doesn't look very good. Like, they have just not been the same offense post Liam Cohen, and that's the reason. You've got Baker Mayfield, who's just not playing good football, even with all his weapons back. So in theory, it's like, yeah, I love the weaponry. I love the offense as a whole at their best, but at the same time, they're not playing that good at football. Ultimately, I think it just comes down to matchup. And this is a matchup I would ultimately trust over a matchup against the Vikings, for example. And I think that guys like McLaughlin could be on waivers this week. And if you want to make sure you snag him, because he's not going to be a priority waiver ad, you need to utilize our automatic waiver tool at fsroundup.com. The best part about this is, aside from it winning people their leagues this year, which has been completely validated by people who are actually using it, you're in a situation where you can get a 1 week free trial and just use it for the final week of the year, and then just come back next year. If you like it, just come back and use it for the duration of next season. Give yourself a trial run using our automatic waiver tool, because I guarantee you're going to get a lot of value out of it. In addition to that, you'll also get my top 300 rankings this week. You'll get access to the comparison feature and the league sync up feature on the site as well, with a premium subscription at fsroundup.com. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we've got Cairo Santos at number 7 and Eddie Pinheiro at number 8, and they're taking on each other in San Francisco. The reason why I think he's above Eddie Pinheiro for me this week is because when I look at Santos, his matchup is against a defense that really can't stop a nosebleed. And I've been calling this one out. Multiple people wanted me to put them in as a good defensive play several weeks ago against the Titans. That didn't work out well because the 49ers really can't stop you. Now, I think the good thing about this one is it could be a shootout, because I don't think either defense is particularly strong. But I think that Cairo Santos' offense is one of those that I would trust more to get more points in this game, because I think the Bears' defense is a little better, which could still be very good for Eddie Pinheiro. He could be in line for a 4 field goal day, or they just continue to run really, really efficiently offensively, keep scoring points, and he'll be in position to get another one of those games where he has 3 extra point attempts and 1 field goal. Either way, there's a lot of scoring, I think, in this particular matchup right here that you just want to take advantage of from every fantasy football perspective, including the kickers in this one. Dropping down to our last tier, we've got Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions at number 9 going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Now, I think that Jake Bates is in good position again. He was in good position last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jake Bates has really done well for the most part. My problem has always been inaccuracy issues. He's missed 8 total kicks this year if you include extra points and field goals. That's always been my problem with the guy, but he's got a leg. 59 yards is long, and he has done very well for most of the past 2 months. So ultimately, I just say, I look at this matchup and think, well, Max Brosmer's in all likelihood going to be quarterbacking for the Minnesota Vikings. How likely is it their defense is going to hold up against a Detroit offense that's going to come in ready to play in this one? Ultimately, I just think that this dam is going to break this week for the Vikings, and the Detroit Lions kind of have their way with the defense, which ultimately makes me think that they'll score more touchdowns than field goals, but I do think his floor is pretty high. Cam Little at number 10. This could be a low ranking. He goes to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Now, again, the reason why he is not in these upper tiers is because I think they're going to score touchdowns at will. And that, of course, just lowers the upside of a player like Cam Little. This Jags offense looks very impressive. I mean, their whole team looks impressive, and Indianapolis' defense, not exactly great. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity here for Cam Little to have a big game if they actually stall out more than I think. And I would say it's possible because it is a divisional game. So you do have to factor in the divisional opponent. And I do think Cam Little ultimately is a really good play this week. Either way, he was making the top 10, whether it was in the top 5 or in the top 10. He lands at 10 because I ultimately just think they're going to score more touchdowns than field goals this week. And I feel very similar to Andy Baregalis of the New England Patriots. Going to New York to take on the Jets, yeah freaking who? Like, they're going to have their way offensively with the Jets. So ultimately, I just think they're going to have a lot more touchdowns and extra point attempts than there will be field goals. I don't think he has the highest ceiling this week. I think his floor is very high, very similar to Cam Little's and Jake Bates, but I don't think his ceiling is ultimately going to be hit because they're not going to have a problem with scoring touchdowns. That's just the way I feel about most of the guys in this tier, aside from Harrison Mevis, who's at 12. I could see this one getting a little bit weird. In Atlanta, it's a primetime game standalone. Not that the Falcons have much to play for, but I just think, I wonder if the Falcons might show up to play in this one. I could be wrong. I think it could be a blowout. The Rams crush them. But I wouldn't be surprised if another week without Devontae Adams is going to continue some offensive struggles. Not that they struggled to score points against the Seahawks, obviously, but I'm mostly coming from the perspective of how does it look a second straight week? And I do think that's kind of the problem here that I'm having with the Rams, but I really just do think that they're going to score more touchdowns than field goals once again. But it's another good example of, I think, a guy who has a relatively high floor, but a lower ceiling as well. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below. And if you want to see the top 12 defenses for the week, click on this video right here.